After months of isolation deep in the forest, facing harsh conditions and a dangerous infection in his leg, Quang finally returns home. But his journey is far from over. The infection threatens his leg, and the risk of amputation looms. Surrounded by the unwavering care of his mother and Linda, he must navigate fear, pain, and the emotional weight of recovery. Join us as we follow Quang's struggle to heal, the powerful bonds of family and love that sustain him, and the courage it takes to face the unimaginable. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel to witness his journey unfold. Quang stepped down from the rattling bus, his body aching from the long journey, yet his heart surged with relief and anticipation. Months of separation, of harsh days spent deep in the forest far from civilization, had finally come to an end. He had endured isolation, physical exhaustion, and the constant gnawing worry about whether he would ever return to the comfort of home. Now, as he planted his foot on familiar ground, he felt an almost overwhelming mix of joy, nostalgia, and a hint of trepidation. There, waiting at the edge of the bustling bus station, were two figures who made the hardships worthwhile: his mother, her hands clasped nervously in front of her, eyes glistening with unshed tears, and Linda, her face lighting up the moment she spotted him, her smile wide and unwavering. Though his legs had regained some strength during the journey, the months in the forest had left their mark. The rugged terrain, the lack of proper medical care, and the constant exposure to the elements had caused a lingering infection in his leg, a reminder that his body had not fully healed. Each step he took sent a sharp reminder of that vulnerability, a subtle throbbing that pulsed with each movement. He had grown used to pushing through pain, accustomed to ignoring it in order to complete his mission in the wilderness, but the thought of the infection worsening still gnawed at the back of his mind. He knew that modern medicine, a stable home environment, and the support of those who loved him would be crucial in preventing the situation from escalating. The bus's engine rumbled behind him, a distant echo of the journey he had endured, as he slowly made his way toward his waiting family. The smell of warm, familiar air mixed with the faint scent of rain-soaked asphalt, a combination that made his chest tighten with emotion. He could see the concern etched into his mother's face, the tiny lines deepened by months of worry and sleepless nights, each one a testament to her unwavering love. Linda, standing a little to the side, radiated a quiet strength, her eyes shining with a mixture of relief and determination. They had waited for this moment, and he could feel their anticipation mirrored in his own heartbeat. As he approached, he noticed how small and delicate Linda's hands looked, and yet he knew they had the power to comfort him in ways nothing else could. Her gaze never wavered from him, following each careful step he took, as if measuring his every movement to ensure he was safe. His mother, meanwhile, had already begun to wipe her eyes discreetly, not wanting him to notice, though Quang had learned long ago that nothing escaped her watchful attention. The sight of them, waiting patiently despite the throng of strangers and the chaos of the bus station, filled him with a warmth he could not describe. For a moment, he allowed himself to breathe freely, to relax his shoulders that had been tensed for months, to feel the weight of worry lift slightly, replaced by gratitude and longing. Even as the joy of reunion swelled within him, there was still a shadow of concern. He felt the subtle stiffness in his leg, the dull ache that had been a constant companion during his trek. He had managed to reach this point despite the infection, but he knew the real challenge was yet to come. Home would offer comfort, love, and the possibility of healing, yet it also represented the confrontation with the fragility of his body, a body that had carried him through months of survival but now threatened to betray him if neglected. Every cautious step toward his mother and Linda reminded him that his recovery would require patience, careful attention, and above all, the unwavering support of those who had waited so long for his return. Finally, he reached them. His mother opened her arms instinctively, and Linda's smile broadened into a radiant, reassuring beam. The world seemed to pause for a heartbeat as they embraced him, their presence wrapping around him like a shield, promising protection and care. For the first time in months, Quang allowed himself to feel completely safe, the tension in his body melting slightly as he leaned into the warmth of their embrace. The long journey was over, but the true journey, the journey of healing, of mending not just his body but also the invisible wounds of fear and isolation, was only just beginning. And for the first time in what felt like forever, he knew he would not have to face it alone. Once they arrived home, the comforting familiarity of the house wrapped around Quang like a protective cocoon. The air smelled of freshly brewed tea and the faint scent of flowers from the small garden by the window, simple things that reminded him he was finally back where he belonged. His mother gently guided him to the living room, her hands never leaving his arm, her touch warm and reassuring. She kept glancing at his leg, her worry barely concealed, her brow furrowed with the silent questions racing through her mind. "Let's get you seated first," she murmured softly, helping him onto the sofa. The cushions sank slightly beneath his weight, and for a brief moment, he closed his eyes, grateful for the comfort, yet aware that the real battle, the fight against the stubborn infection in his leg, was only beginning. Linda, refusing to let any moment go to waste, immediately went to fetch clean cloths, antiseptic solutions, and a small first aid kit. She returned with a determined expression, kneeling by his side and carefully examining his leg. "We'll do this slowly, together," she whispered, her voice calm but firm, as though reassuring both him and herself that they could handle whatever came next. Quang felt a mixture of relief and guilt, relief that he was no longer alone in facing this, and guilt for the anxiety his condition must have caused them both. Yet, even in his discomfort, he recognized the extraordinary care and unwavering presence of the two women who loved him. Every gesture, from his mother's tender touch to Linda's steady hands, was a promise that he would not face this struggle in isolation. The process of cleaning and dressing the wound became a ritual that evening, each movement deliberate and meticulous. His mother applied a warm compress first, soothing the throbbing ache that had been his constant companion for weeks. Linda carefully applied antiseptic solution, her hands surprisingly gentle despite the urgency in her eyes. Quang could feel the tension in his body slowly easing, replaced by the quiet comfort of shared effort and unwavering attention. Between them, the room was filled with small words of encouragement, laughter, and the occasional sigh, a symphony of care that made the infection seem less threatening, as if love itself had the power to combat the unseen menace in his leg. Hours passed, and the evening light began to fade, casting long shadows across the room. Yet, neither mother nor Linda allowed themselves a pause until Quang's leg was properly dressed and secured. They checked his temperature, monitored his pulse, and even prepared a small bowl of herbal broth to aid his recovery. Each action, simple as it seemed, carried a weight of devotion that Quang could feel deep in his bones. The pain in his leg had not disappeared, but it no longer dominated his mind. It had been tempered by the constant reassurance that he was surrounded by people willing to endure sleepless nights, anxious hours, and relentless care on his behalf. During brief moments of rest, Quang would look at them, his mother's gentle eyes, Linda's determined gaze, and realize that his physical recovery was inseparable from the emotional healing they provided. It was as though the warmth, attentiveness, and unwavering commitment of these two women could counteract the infection itself. Even as the shadows deepened and the night grew quiet, there was no sense of fear or isolation. There was only the profound realization that together, they could face the uncertainties ahead. Quang's heart, heavy with the burden of what he had endured, began to lighten. Every small gesture, every careful movement, every whispered word of encouragement, served as a reminder that healing was not a solitary journey. It was a path walked hand in hand, bound by love, trust, and the quiet, unspoken promise that no challenge, not even the threat of losing a part of his body, would be faced alone. By the time night fully fell, the rhythm of care and comfort had created a fragile but precious sense of peace. Quang lay back on the sofa, feeling the steady presence of his mother and Linda flanking him on either side. The infection was still there, a looming concern, yet it seemed smaller somehow, diminished by the unwavering support surrounding him. For the first time since his return, he allowed himself to hope, not just for recovery, but for the strength, patience, and love that would see him through the difficult days ahead. And in that hope, nurtured by the two people who loved him most, he felt a quiet certainty that he could face whatever challenges came next, confident that he would never face them alone. Even as the night deepened and the quiet hum of the house enveloped them, the shadow of worry hung over Quang. The doctor's words echoed in his mind, sharp and unyielding. If the infection spread any further, amputation might become unavoidable. It was a terrifying thought, one that made him feel both vulnerable and frustrated. He had survived the forest, endured months of physical strain, and now, the enemy was so insidious it could take away a part of him without warning. And yet, despite the fear gnawing at the edges of his consciousness, there was a steadfast presence beside him, his mother, ever watchful, and Linda, unwavering in her devotion. Throughout the night, they remained vigilant, their eyes never straying far from him. His mother adjusted his leg carefully, whispering words of reassurance as she checked the dressing, her fingers gentle but precise. Linda sat nearby, ready with a cool compress, a fresh bandage, or anything else Quang might need. They spoke softly, creating a cocoon of calm around him, and each word, each gesture, seemed to carry a quiet power that bolstered his courage. Though the pain in his leg pulsed relentlessly, the emotional weight of facing it alone had vanished. In its place was the comfort of shared endurance, the knowledge that he was surrounded by two people willing to confront fear alongside him, willing to share the burden so that he would not have to bear it alone. As hours stretched into the early morning, Quang found himself reflecting on the depth of their care. It was not just about bandages or antiseptics, nor was it merely about monitoring his temperature or pulse. It was about the quiet persistence of love in action, the willingness to be present in moments of uncertainty and pain. Every brush of a hand, every whispered question, "Does it hurt here? Can you move slightly?" was a thread weaving strength into the fabric of his courage. Even the briefest smiles exchanged between his mother and Linda offered him reassurance that he was not defined by his vulnerability, but by the strength of the bonds surrounding him. Fear, while never fully absent, began to transform into determination. Quang realized that the infection, though dangerous, had inadvertently brought them even closer. The nights of pain became nights of connection, nights where the fragility of his body was counterbalanced by the unwavering resilience of those who loved him. Linda's hand in his, warm and firm, was a reminder that fear could be shared and diminished. His mother's soft voice, steady even as her own worry threatened to rise, was a lifeline in the storm of uncertainty. Together, they created a sanctuary where hope and vigilance coexisted, a place where healing could begin not only in flesh but in spirit. By dawn, Quang felt a cautious sense of optimism. The throbbing in his leg was still present, a stark reminder of the risks he faced, yet the infection seemed less menacing when confronted with the unwavering care surrounding him. He understood now that the true strength of recovery lay not only in medicine or physical resilience, but in the tireless love and support of family. Even if the worst were to happen, even if the doctor's warnings became reality, he knew he would face it not with despair, but with courage, fortified by the people who had chosen to remain by his side, unwavering and steadfast. As the first light of morning filtered through the curtains, Quang felt a profound sense of gratitude. The fear of losing a part of himself had not disappeared, but it had been tempered by love, patience, and shared determination. He looked at his mother and Linda, their faces etched with exhaustion yet glowing with quiet triumph, and realized that this journey, painful, frightening, and uncertain, was a testament to the power of human connection. The infection was a formidable adversary, but it could not diminish the strength, courage, and unwavering love that now surrounded him. For the first time in months, he allowed himself to believe that he could overcome this challenge, that he could heal, and that he would never face life's trials alone. In that room, bathed in the gentle light of dawn, Quang understood a truth deeper than any medical advice or prognosis. The heart's resilience, nurtured by love, could outshine even the darkest shadow of fear. And as he drifted into a light, uneasy sleep, he felt the steady presence of his mother and Linda beside him, a promise that, no matter what the future held, he would never face it alone.